What are some of the things that scare people the most? The dentist? Roller coasters? How about public speaking? That's right, for many people, the thought of getting on stage or even in front of a group of people to deliver a speech is downright frightening. In fact, it's one of the most common fears. Well, if you have an important speech in your future or you just want to hone your speaking skills, you are in luck because today we'll be speaking with an expert on the topic of speaking, and we're going to meet him after this. MJ Wolf here, and
welcome to the Wolf Den.
Yo, that's exciting. I like the way that sounds.
Wow, I love to be in the Wolf Den.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are in the Wolf Den.
What's up, what's up, what's up? Glad to be here, MJ.
Hosted by MJ Wolf.
Hi everyone, welcome to the show. With me today is the founder of MasterTalk, someone who coaches ambitious executives and entrepreneurs to become top 1% communicators in their industry. He also has a popular YouTube channel called MasterTalk, which he has a primary goal of providing free access to communication tools for anyone in the world who wants to hone their speaking skills. His name is Brenden Kumarasamy. And Brenden, welcome to the show. You are officially in the Wolf Den.
MJ, the pleasure is absolutely mine. What a killer intro. It's so great to be here.
Thank you. Now let me ask you this. Why is this such a huge fear for people? I mean, it's not like going to the dentist, I understand. You're scared of getting your teeth worked on and the pain you're going to endure, but this is not that kind of pain. This is a different kind of pain. Why are people so scared of doing this?
Absolutely, MJ. I've asked myself this question for many years, and thankfully you've caught me at a point in my career where I actually have a good answer for you. So here it is. Where do we learn how to speak? Because that's where the answer probably lies. And the answer, MJ, is the education system. High school, elementary school, it doesn't really matter where we were born. We went through similar education systems. But all of those presentations that we gave at our younger age had three fundamental problems, MJ. Number one is they're all mandatory. We don't wake up one morning and say, hey, Brenden, MJ, you guys want to present and eat breakfast all day? Nobody says that. That's problem number one. Problem number two is all of the presentations we give in school are never tied to our passions. It's never, hey, MJ, what are you excited about? Media, podcasting, acting. Yeah, that's not how it works. You got to talk about Shakespeare and poetry. And after you're done that, you have to talk about the Renaissance. So that's problem number two. And then problem number three, which is the worst of all, is every single presentation, MJ, is tied to a punishment. So if you don't do a great job, not only do you not get points, you lose points and you get punished for it. So we grow up believing that communication is a chore and nobody wants to get better at doing the dishes.
I mean, you're right. Our presentations were our homework a lot of the times. So if you want to become, a proficient speaker and you want to be confident on stage, let's say someone has, here's an example. I had to give, this was a nightmare for me. I'm an actor. I have no problem getting on stage and or on set with a crew, a cast, director. I can do that in 2 seconds. But put me on stage in front of a bunch of people where I have to give a speech, and I would be so nervous. It's a different kind of nerve because the director and crew don't care what I'm doing. They're not paying. They're doing their own thing, right? When I'm standing on a stage, all eyes are on me. So how do I overcome that fear? How do I become confident speaking to a group?
Absolutely, MJ. Thanks for sharing that so vulnerably. Really appreciate that. Here's the way I think about it, because there's a couple of solutions here, and one of them is going to be the unlock for your audience. Let's go through the menu. The first thing that I would say is the fear of communication, or that anxiety we might feel, is completely normal and isn't something that we should try to remove, but rather overpower. So what does that mean? Let me give you an example with me through a boxing match analogy. Let's say one side of the ring is the fear, the stress, the anxiety. For me, it's, let's say we're having lunch and Elon Musk calls me and he goes, you know what, Brenden, I really like your YouTube channel and what you've been doing with MJ. Can you come coach me? I'll pay you $1 million. Would I be scared? Yeah, of course. Even if I'm the expert, it doesn't matter. There's a level for all of us that we're fearful of. So let's go back to the boxing ring. One side of the ring is the fear, and the other side is the message. Why this matters, why it's important, why should we share. So the goal, my friend, is not to remove the fear, but rather make sure that when that boxing match starts, when that bell rings, that your message gets the knockout punch every single day of the week and wins the match. So it's a dichotomy that we need to manage. I'm the best example of this. I was a kid when I started MasterTalk, MJ. 22 years old, had no experience, lived in my mother's basement. I got a crooked left arm. I studied my whole life in a second language, which is French because I live in Montreal. And I got a bachelor's degree in accounting. Why did I think I could be the person to share ideas? And the answer was because of the 15-year-old girl who can't afford me. That's why I started making videos for. That message was way more important than the fear that it was associated with. So I just beat the crap out of my fear every single day of the week.
Nice. So now, if I'm going on stage, and let's say I've got a big presentation, like, I don't know, 20-minute, 15-minute presentation. Do you recommend I'm reading it verbatim, or do you recommend I have points I've got listed, kind of bullet points, or do you recommend like a teleprompter, or just going and shooting from the hip? What's the best way to tackle your presentation when it comes to notes or teleprompters?
For sure, MJ. So I'm personally not a fan of notes and teleprompters because it creates a barrier between you and your audience. Like, imagine if we were having this conversation and I had a teleprompter with all the answers to your questions. It wouldn't feel natural at all, right? It'd be like, okay, this sounds a little bit off. But what I will recommend is a strategy to help us alleviate the nerves that most people don't do. So this will be an immediate unlock for people, MJ, that I call the puzzle strategy. So as kids, we used to play jigsaw puzzles, and some of us still do. You know those little pieces that you kind of put together? You got a box of 1,000. So you might know the answer to this, Em, so I'll ask you, but it's okay if you don't know. If you were doing a puzzle, which pieces would you start with first and why?
The corners.
Exactly. Why
that
is that?
creates the framework for the puzzle.
Ding, ding, ding. Perfect answer. You got it. Right? And they're easier to find in the box. So why am I bringing this up, MJ? Because in communication, unfortunately, we do the opposite. We start with the middle first. We start shoving a bunch of content in our presentations. So then what happens? When we get to the presentation, that 15, 20-minute keynote that you're talking about, you ramble throughout the whole thing, and then the last slide sounds something like this. Yeah, so thanks. Not the right approach. So instead what you want to do is practice like a jigsaw puzzle. Start with the edges first. Practice your introduction 20 times, 25 times. Seems like a big number, but it isn't. Because your introduction is like a minute or two. It'll take you 30 minutes. And that will immediately give you confidence to go, wow, my introduction is solid. I'm going to do really well in this presentation. Same thing with the close. With your conclusion. What's a great movie with a terrible ending? Last time I checked, terrible movie. Then do the close, and then jump into the middle. So if you practice in this order, you won't really need notes anymore because you'll feel more confident. Whereas most of us, when we have a 20-minute presentation, we practice it 3 times. We don't really see that much improvement. We get tired, and then we don't think we'll do well.
All right, now what happens? Let's say here's another. So let's say you do a presentation and you completely blow it. The rails fall off. It's a horrible presentation. A lot of people are going to close up and say, "I'm never ever doing that again." How do you, if once you've had a bad experience, how do you overcome that and get back to And do you just start with a few friends maybe, or start with a small group to kind of? I know there are. What's the famous Toastmasters? Is that the kind of thing you'd recommend, starting off with a small group if you need to rebuild your confidence?
Yes to everything. I'll just add a layer on top. You're absolutely right, MJ. The other piece that I would add here is when we think of communication, I'm a great example of this too. Like, I didn't start to a crowd of like 1,000 to whatever the channel has now, like a bunch of people. It started with 2 people. That was my first keynote. And I've had a bunch of terrible experiences speaking. I remember this one time, I got asked to deliver a keynote in front of like 200-300 kids. So at the time, it was like my biggest ever keynote. So I was really pumped. I spent a month, 2 months preparing for it. And I find out, MJ, 15 minutes before the presentation. Not 15 hours, or else I would have had time to prepare. Not 15 days, 15 minutes. She comes up to me, the director. She goes, "Oh, Brenden, I totally forgot to tell you. Half of this room doesn't speak English. Can you do half of it in French?" And I just went, what? So I'm fluent in French, but it's not as good as my English. So I was literally looking at all my notes and I was translating everything. And then I got on stage and I figured it out. And the reason is because it's not about me. It's about the audience. And if I don't speak well, all of those kids are going to look at me and say, well, if this guy that they brought in can't communicate an idea, I don't have any chance of mastering communication. And that was unacceptable to me. So I figured out and I pushed myself to do it. So what does that mean to your question, which is a valid one, MJ? What happens when we have the bad experience? My answer to the question is two ways. One is to focus on one topic. So that way that doesn't happen a lot. So if you're just, like for me, no one's asking what my favorite fruit is on a podcast. They're only asking me questions related to my expertise. So you get better over time and you're impacting more lives. But then the other piece to that, MJ, is to realize that our why often begins with our who. Find one person that you're really energized speaking to, that really gets you out of bed and say, you know what, I better speak to that person because the alternative they have is nobody. So for me, it was the 7-year-old girl who can't afford me. That's why I create my YouTube videos. I don't need to make videos anymore. But I do it for that girl because if I don't make the videos, literally nobody in my age range is going to make them for her because she can't relate to, the 6-year-old PhD in communication. And that drives me. And I would encourage all of you listening to this to find that person. And it could be your kids. You could start with them if you have any.
All right, let me ask you this. Do you recommend, I know a lot of people lead off with a joke to kind of get that laugh feedback and give them a little bit of confidence. But if your joke fails, or you get silence, that also could be a backfire. Do you recommend, A, starting with a joke, and part B of this question is, do you recommend interjecting your own personal experiences into your speech or story?
Right. So here's the way I would answer both questions, MJ. For me, it's always about going back to what is the definition of communication. Let's start there. For me, it's about how do we convey an idea in a way that achieves a specific outcome for a specific audience. And that could mean a bunch of things. That could be convincing our significant other that we should have Mexican food tonight, not Chinese food. That could be speaking in front of 25 people and convincing them they should buy our product. So everything is communication. So now with that layer in mind, now let's dive into how do we communicate that idea best. So then there's different tools you can use. So you mentioned a couple of good ones. Personal stories, humor. Let me add a couple. Analogies, visual stories, metaphors, powerful questions. I think for me it comes down to, A, what is your key idea? If you could only communicate one thing today, what do you want it to be? And then B becomes, what do you personally feel is the best way to defend and argue that key idea in a way that matches your strengths? So I'll use humor because based on, not because of me, because of the feedback I get from audiences, people think I'm funny. So I was like, okay, so I'll do it. But there's other people I've coached in my life that I was like, you should never tell the joke. This is not going to work. Do a powerful question. Ask them a question like, how would the world change if you became an exceptional communicator? Or something related to your field. But the third piece, going back to puzzle, MJ, this is why I love that strategy, is you don't have to guess. This is what people miss, MJ. They go, I need to say a joke. I need to start a question. No. You try all of them. That's the point of doing the intro 25 times. You can test all of them in only 30 minutes. And I would encourage you to do that. Because like riding a bike, you'll fall off the bike the first time. But then as you practice, you'll eventually get it. And that's what eventually led me to realize that, hey, you know what? I could tell a joke. I could do a personal question. But the thing that works for me best is my personal story. People love that, and I love saying it. So I start there.
Now, since I do this show, I get advertisements. I got a few on Instagram or Facebook for people who are selling their speaking course, and it says like, learn to make like, $1.5 million a year as a speaker. It's like to go on the speaking circuit. Do people really do this and speak for a living? Like, why would anybody want to hear from me on stage at a TED Talk or whatever? I mean, do people really pay good money for quality speakers who can really kind of capture the room?
Absolutely, MJ, and I do agree. Some people do get paid millions, but what I will argue here is that's in the very, very, very small minority of people. It's kind of like actors, right? To use your industry as an analogy. Sure, the average salary of an actor is really, really high, but that's because most of them are broke and a small percentage of them make millions of dollars a year, right? So it's the same game in speaking. So for me, the advice, and this is why I tell my clients, I'll never promise them speaking engagements. I actually think that's out of integrity. Because if you're not good enough, kind of like acting. It's like if there was an acting coach who promised you a Hollywood movie. Yeah, good luck with that. They can't promise you that outcome. That doesn't make any sense. What they can promise you is I'm going to make you as talented as possible so that you're maximizing your shot at goal. So that's what I tell my clients. That's what I'm a specialist in. So what does that look like in terms of advice? Because I do get paid thousands of dollars to deliver some keynotes, but that's not my full-time gig and it's not most of my revenue for sure. So what does that look like? A few things. One, be so good that the industry can ignore you, which eventually means you have to give the same presentation over and over again for free, not for money. You have to be so good that people look at you and go, oh my God, this person's amazing. That's one. The second piece is you need to give a presentation that solves a problem for your audience. As Rory Vaden says, the fee that you get paid to give the presentation needs to be worth less than the problem that you're solving. In other words, the problem you're solving needs to be worth more money to your audience than the fee that is being paid to you. So for example, I'm not some keynoter like Gary Vee. I might be one day. But for now, it's like, no, a corporation calls me and goes, I'll pay you X number of dollars. Come give a presentation to my executives because they suck at communication, and I'll pay you what you need. And then the last piece to that is you need to be willing to do it 100 times for free, or else you won't get paid to do it.
That makes sense. Now, let's say you've honed your skills. You've got this master speech down. It's inspiring. It solves a problem. You've got it nailed. Like, you've got a 20-minute amazing speech that just thrills people. How do you get, if people don't know about you, like I have a talent agent who submits me to commercials and films. Is there an agent that you use? How do you get those speaking engagements?
You're right, there are speaking agencies, but I'll be honest, they're hard to land. Speaking agencies is a little bit different than talent agency, though I might be wrong on this, but what I will say, most speakers in the circuit aren't qualified to have an agency, because agencies only work with speakers who already have a full book. And a full book just means, for those who are listening to this, that you already have a bunch of speaking engagements. You're already an in-demand speaker. And just to be transparent, even with all of my success so far, I still don't have a speaking agent. Even me. I don't even qualify for one yet, which is ridiculous. So what's the advice? That's why I'm very empathetic to people getting started in the industry, even if I do really well with my speaking career. Here's what I'll say. Okay. A, you need to be really good. B, you want to have the right contacts. So how I do it is when I give a free presentation, eventually like number 97, one of the people in the audience was an executive at a company. So they came up to me and said, hey, Brent, I really like your speech. Can you come give a workshop at my company? How much do you charge? And I was like, okay, now you're officially a paid speaker. That's literally what happened, right? And then the third thing that I do, which is more of a hack that I recommend, because instead of telling people you're great, just prove it to them. That's why I like my YouTube channel. It's like people don't have to guess, oh, is Brenden a good coach? Does he know what he's talking about? Like you didn't have to guess. You just watch a few videos like, okay, this kid knows what he's talking about. Okay, this is not bad at all. So it's the same thing. Show, don't tell. So for me, one of my corporate clients actually closed 2 months ago. When I got into the sales process and they were considering me and 3 other speakers or something, I made it really easy for them. I said, hey, I'm not expecting you to pick me. Why don't you come to my free training and see what I can do? They go, sure, it's free. They get in that workshop. I blow their socks off because I was willing to do it for free. And they go, okay, you're in. You're the person we're picking. That's it.
All right. Well, let's talk about your free training. If I have viewers that are watching this now that want to either start from scratch, that want to improve their current level of speaking, it's rockstarcommunicator.com, right? And what are they going to get when they go there? And are there any upgrades that they can add? Are you going to coach them personally? What's the whole deal when they go to rockstarcommunicator.com?
For sure, MJ. So thanks for that. So 2 ways to piece. So for sure, I got my own free training, but I think the lesson for all of us is to create your own. Right? That's really the lesson that I want people to take, which is like, if you're like a health guru, if you're a fitness person, create your own free training, create your own stage. So that way when you get really good, people notice and your numbers don't lie. Because if 3 people show up to your training after you do it 10 times, it means you're not good. It means you got to keep working on it. Whereas if 50 people show up, then you're doing something right. So for those of you who want to jump in on that, and I would encourage you to, so that you can build your own essentially, is at rockstarcommunicator.com. I do a 90-minute free training over Zoom that's live, and I'm facilitating and coaching people on that call. We're teaching people a lot of principles around communication that we went through today, so people can check that out and register and enjoy the ride.
And that can even go for if you're not speaking to a crowd, like you said. So let's say you're you're really into training dogs. You're a dog trainer, and you want to make you don't want to go speak to a crowd, but you just want to be able to go on camera, which for some people that's hard for them. So if they want to go on camera and speak about their passion, they can take your class and just learn the skills required to speak properly on camera or to a group about their subject, and then create that dog training YouTube channel or that course, and then get people to come follow along with the information, right?
Exactly. I completely agree, MJ. I think the point that you're driving, which I think is absolutely key, communication is an accelerant of dreams. Doesn't matter what the dream is. It could be being a professional speaker. It could be building your own business. It could be growing your corporate career. Heck, it could be being a better father, mother for your children. Doesn't matter. But communication helps us get to that goal much faster. So regardless of what it is, see communication as an amplifier of your own ideas.
Okay, Brenden. Now, before we wrap this up, I'm going to have you help me with a subscriber giveaway. We do this for every episode. It's the Winter View series. We're doing this right now. If you are not registered, I'm giving away either a free PayPal payment or an Amazon gift card, or if you're under 18, a charity of your choice. So go to winterview.win to register. Just put your name in. It's free. You won't be added to any spam email list. It's just to register. You must be subscribed to my channel. So, Brenden, let's do the Winter View winner right now. Okay, guys, I've got 3 names right here, and Brenden is going to help us pick a winner from these cups here. Here are the 3 names of our subscribers. We've got Ryan Davis. We've got Samantha Romero. And we've got Ariel Casana. All right, we're going to wrap these up so Brenden can't see. And then he's going to pick a cup from 1 to 3. All right, Brenden, pick a cup.
1.
Lucky number 1, and the winner of the $25 Amazon gift card or PayPal payment is Samantha Romero. Samantha, I will be in touch with you, and I'll be PayPaling you in the next 24 hours or giving you an Amazon gift card. Thank you so much. Again, if you want to sign up to be in this contest for the next interview, go to winterview.win. Brenden, before we wrap here, I want to share some of your links for our viewers. So we've got rockstarcommunicator.com in the description down below. What other links? Instagram? Tell me what else I can share with my viewers.
For sure, MJ. Thanks so much for having me on. It's great. So the second one is definitely YouTube. You can just go to MasterTalk in one word, and you'll have access to hundreds of free videos on how to speak. And then the third one is Instagram and TikTok, which is Master Your Talk. And if you can figure out how to spell my name, you can add me on LinkedIn as well.
That's right. And now, guys, I mean, even if you're not ready to go to Rockstar Communicator, at very least, go to MasterTalk YouTube channel. This is free speaking advice. Watch 3, 5, 10, whatever you want, and gain a grasp of what you need to do to become a quality speaker. This is going to be some great material. So, Brenden, thank you so much for being here today. You are officially released from the Wolf Den.
The pleasure was mine, MJ. Thanks for having me on.
See ya.